about 3 years ago, I introduced a bill that would ban legislators from working for lobbying firms. It seems like something that should be obvious. We have a rule in the books that says that you can't be a legislator and a registered lobbyist, and lobbyists can't give legislators more than $5 value. They can't buy you dinner or buy you a drink. But for some reason, there's a loophole that allows lobbying firms to give legislators a six-figure salary to advocate for legislation they want. It's absolutely swampy and disgusting. And so I carried a bill for 3 years to get rid of this. And last night we offered it as an amendment, and it passed with overwhelming support. 119 legislators voted for it in the House. It went over to the Senate. They passed it. It's going to the governor's desk. It's going to become law. And it's a great ethical lobbying reform for the state of Minnesota.
Is it, and I don't mean to be negative, so tell me if I'm wrong. Is it another wordplay thing? I mean, like you say, it seems like a no-brainer. You can't literally be a lobbyist at the same time you're working for the people. But yet, if you're not a lobbyist because you didn't register, then you were able to make those that money on the side. Is it just going to be, is there another loophole on this that says, well, I don't really work for them, they just send me checks on Thursday? You know what I'm saying? Is there a way around this? I'm more concerned that some lawyers going to say, well, you can do it if you just do this.
Yeah, I mean, we have been trying to button up this language for a while, doing different revisions. In fact, I met with the campaign finance board who oversees lobbying because it actually is a concern of theirs. They didn't want to bring forward the request for this bill because there's a current legislator, and he's in my party. It's Representative Kurt Dowd. He's actually the leader of the Republicans in the House. He works for a DC lobbying firm that represents, dozens of multinational corporations, pharmaceutical giants. And so, to do this against, when there's somebody in my own party that works for a lobbying firm, I think it shows that this is a bipartisan reform. And this is something that happens on both sides of the aisle. I'm not just attacking a Democrat. This is something that we need to clean up. And for that reason, pretty much every lawmaker in the House and Senate voted for this legislation.
How much pushback are you going to get from this, though? Like you say, Dowd is literally on the payroll of a company now, not quote unquote a lobbyist, but this is going to change his life in a lot of zeros. What happens there? Not everybody voted for it, so some will still be okay, but Dowd has some clout.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I mean, I'm getting a lot of pushback from people saying, really, I mean, but it's the right thing to do. It was the right time to do it. The only people it impacts were people in that room, in that chamber, and in the Senate chamber. And so it needs to be, hey, should we do this or not? I'd love to do the same thing with term limits, but we couldn't get a vote on that, I'm sure. But this was a good piece of legislation, and it doesn't go into effect immediately. We allowed him to serve out the rest of his term, so it doesn't go into effect until the end of the term. We don't want to cause a special election, but it's a good piece of legislation, and I'm proud for even local representatives down here. Torkelson and Petersburg and Bjorn Olson voted for this, so it was a good piece of legislation.
And can I ask, is it just while you're a representative or in the Senate? There's 2 years after? Is there anything about that, or literally is there any length of time after being elected?
Yeah, as much as I'd love to stop that, there is no law against lobbying when you leave the legislature. There is a House rule against lobbying. You're banned for 2 years, but it's only a rule of the House. Well, if you're not a legislator, you can't enforce it anyways. And we have had a lot of legislators leave and become lobbyists. And, Nick Zerwas left in the middle of his term to become a lobbyist. And so that happens. I would love to see that cleaned up. But as it is now, you should at least not be able to work for a lobbying firm. And the main reason why is, if there's people on the Democrat side, especially that work for nonprofits that advocate for policy, but if you're on a group that advocates to end homelessness, I know where you stand. Mm-hmm. There's a lawyer for the teachers union who's kind of a lobbyist. I know he's advocating for education policy, but when you are working for a contract law firm, lobbyist firm that has dozens or hundreds of multinational clients that are not disclosed, I don't know where you stand on just about anything. And I can't trust you, especially to lead a caucus of Republicans. That just isn't good. And
it isn't so much you trusting them as the rest of us. If you're a legislator and I'm thinking you are only going to do what's best for me in my district or my neighborhood, and you have a anybody on the other side who might have put a couple of bucks in your pocket, but they don't lean the way your district does. That's where the conflict comes in. Sorry, Mr. Munson, if you've got to figure out where they lie and whether it's right or wrong, that, that doesn't bother me so bad. It's those that, I don't want to say it's paid off, but it's ruining your sharp edge, if you will.
It recently came up where there was people concerned. We voted on a bunch of solar legislation to greatly expand the solar program and subsidize these solar panels that are, mined by slave owners overseas. And Stateside Associates, Kurt Dout's employer, represents a major solar manufacturer, represents a vaccine manufacturer. So there's concerns about that too. We need to get rid of the conflict of interest and let's clean it up in St. Paul. And so that was a good bill. And I'm appreciative of the Senate for supporting this language as well, so we could get it through at the last bill of the last day.
Well, I was going to say, since it happened after we talked, I asked you yesterday your best bill, your least favorite bill. I would presume this one's got to rank right up there as you tried to get this thing passed for 3 years. Did it move up your best bill of the season?
Well, it's certainly from an ethical standpoint. I mean, I'm really about transparency and honesty in government. It's one of the things I stand for. I believe that I'm a principled legislator. And this was something, there's been at least a half dozen legislators in the last 2 decades that have worked for lobbying firms, especially people in leadership, which is a big concern. So I think it's a good way to clean up. And yeah, sure. Personally, this is one of my best wins of the year. I'm in the minority. And so it's to get legislation this important through, I think is great.
Well, congratulations to you, because I think there is something to that. I think you've done a good thing in the long run that this will go. And has the governor, I thought he had signed all that stuff yesterday or within 3 hours. Is this still to be signed?
I don't know if this one's been signed yet. The tax bill is not really part of the budget bill. And so he signed all the other ones to prevent a government shutdown. This one has all the PPP loan forgiveness and tax conformity and stuff. So this is a great bill. He'll be signing this one for sure. So I'm looking forward to my portion of that bill becoming law.
Representative Munson, thanks for keeping us up to date. It's just so funny. We had you on the air and then, I don't know, whatever time last night, we missed this one by a couple of hours.
Three in the morning this happened. So
so I appreciate you letting us know and keeping us on top of things. You have yourself a nice day and a happy Independence Day to you.
Thanks for having me on, Al. You too.
You bet. Representative Jeremy Munson on Al in the Afternoon.